everyone, it's Richard Lewis here again with another video. It's been a crazy week or so. Obviously, we've had the major. DreamHack Atlanta was in town, so I was over there dabbing on them haters. We've had the Phantom Lord shit. He's back. And, of course, what looks to be the culmination to another story that I'm probably kind of known for good or for ill. ESL announced that the IBP power ban was going to be lifted from ESL and ESEA competitions. They did this via Twitter. And you can see here, ESL, we've updated ESL sanctions for match fixing cheating based on E6 official recommendations with a link. And it said, in line with the new sanction structure, we will also be lifting the indefinite match fixing ban on ex-IBP power players for ESL competitions. So as somebody that is kind of, the root cause of a lot of this, I mean, obviously besides their own actions, I'm kind of happy that they're going to get a second chance, because I think my views on it have always been clear. I don't, know if a life ban with no appeal, no parole effectively is an appropriate punishment for throwing a low-level, meaningless game for next to nothing in skins. It deserves a punishment. Mine would have been around about 2 years, maybe a little bit longer, but we're at that point now, and certainly I think everybody kind of feels there is an unfairness there, mainly because of the lack of appeal. Now, obviously, IBP Power didn't do themselves any favors. If you watch my podcast with Steele, he said they went and had a meeting and they kind of lied to Valve. I mean, once you lie to the developer of a game that effectively enables you to have a livelihood, you can understand why they'd be a little bit pissed off. And I'm not saying they were vengeful or anything in their ruling. It might have gone the exact same way had they told the truth. But certainly, what a lot of people can't forgive is the lie. It's it's rarely the crime; it's the cover-up, right? So anyway, this announcement comes through, and I just wanted to do a quick video, nothing too long, because I don't want to milk this. I think this is the end of the story ultimately. Now I think this is as far as it goes, but just as a little bit of closure and just to talk about it. So what does this mean? So first of all, ESL and ESEA making this decision, they're going to get a lot of credit for it. A lot of people are saying, good on you, well done. For being fair, and the people who really need the credit, in my opinion, while it's absolutely great of ESL and the ESEA to kind of defer to their wisdom, is the Esports Integrity Coalition, ESIC, whose recommendations are here. Now, again, I got another podcast with the head of that, a chap called Ian, and he has worked in mainstream sports. He's been on both sides of the equation when it comes to match fixing. He's campaigned tirelessly on appeals for players who've been given what he considers to be unfair, long bans. But he's also been instrumental in identifying risk, investigating match fixing, and being on the side of the people that punish match fixers. It's a difficult line to walk, because what you're talking about here is you understand there needs to be a punishment. The integrity of competition is something you absolutely want to preserve, but equally he identifies that each case is contextual, and you have got to kind of mete out the punishment as is fit, and he's a big believer in that. Now, I had a meeting with him way back when. This is before ESIC even existed. I think it was in Ohio when we first met. We had some delicious beers, a fellow Brit, so he likes a beer, and we had a chat. We talked about his experience in cricket, and we talked specifically about the IBP power bans, and I let him know that I'd talked to Valve, and I'd said that I didn't think the life punishment with no appeal was particularly fair, and Valve said, well, we respect that opinion, but we're probably going to stand by it. So Ian was kind of like, I'm not used to this. This doesn't happen in real sports. He said the number of lifetime bans where there's been no appeals process, he says, are incredibly limited in his experience. And it's not something he particularly endorsed and not something he wanted to see more of in esports. Now, we also talked at length about the problems esports is facing, which is match fixing is always going to be prevalent in an environment where the competitors and athletes are underpaid, or sometimes not paid at all. Meanwhile, you can go on gambling websites, and if you're willing to throw a game and willing to take the risk, you can be, by comparison to the nothing you're earning, lucratively rewarded. And he said this is a real problem and something we've got to identify. Also, let's not kid ourselves. Organized crime is in esports. Let's be real about it. There are people with ties to organized crime floating on the peripheries of esports. People know it. It's happening. And this is dangerous. I'm not just talking gentle crimes either. I'm not talking about your common or garden tax evasion. I'm talking about some heavy hitters. And with that element is going to come more problems because we don't have the infrastructure and we don't have a handle on it. Now, all of that said, ESIC is a step in the right direction, but not everybody seems to be willing to defer to them. There's a reason for this. It's MTG funded, so immediately the assumption was that it would be part of the ESL evil empire, as it's seen by non-ESL competitors. We know ESL on multiple occasions have tried to wrap up control of the scene, but they're not alone in doing that. And this is the thing I always try and tell people. You've got to keep perspective. Sometimes in real life, the choice isn't between evil and good. The choice is between evil and worse. And everybody's trying to control esports. You know, not everybody, but, you know, large portions of it. People don't mind monopolies. People don't mind conflicts of interest. And certainly ESL, for me, bring a net good to the table, even though they have done some things that I couldn't, in good conscience, defend. But here, what we see a very different take by ESL. This is ESL deferring power to an organization that is funded by the same group, but seems to be independent, honestly. And a lot of people, like other tournaments, are like, we don't want to get involved with E6. We think it's an extension of ESL. In the same way WISA was an extension of ESL, we think E6 is going to be the same thing. And that's entirely not fair. That's not my experience. I know these guys take cleaning up esports incredibly seriously and constantly looking at things that have happened. I mean, recently, you probably missed it, but there was a small, South African player, and they released, who was guilty of cheating in a tournament, and they put a big statement out about it, like an official press release that I got sent. And it looks like ESIC is kind of ready, if people will defer and work with them. It looks like ESIC is ready to be that arbitrary body that we wanted. Now, of course, they can't force themselves upon you, and we're always going to be beholden to the developers. But this is where it gets interesting, because ESL and ESEA, because they're effectively one and the same, they've now agreed to defer to ESIC. And what this means is that there is now enough on the calendar for Dazed, Swag, AZK, and Steel to come back, if they want to, and earn not a living, maybe a living, but not a living, but maybe, but earn money. And they can compete again, and all of a sudden, the retirement that you've set for yourself, it's put it on hold, because there's definitely going to be enough there. I mean, it's entirely conceivable that there'll be invite tournaments in the future, and if ESL have got this stance that they've done nothing wrong, they'd be very smart to invite them, because there will be a lot of eyeballs on that from NA. It's a guaranteed traffic boost to your stats, especially when you've got a deal with YouTube, where people are talking about, hey, we're losing numbers. We don't get the same numbers we do on Twitch. Well, if you had to go to YouTube to watch the glorious return of iBuyPower, you're probably going to do it. So I think ESL understand that there's a way to capitalize on this as well from a business perspective. Absolutely. They had no qualms about working with Dazed on the commentary and analysis desk. So, I'm glad that there's going to be a justification there, because I've seen them grinding out, rank S. I've seen them playing. It breaks my heart when I see Brax go to small LAN events and just destroy everybody. And he looks like one of the best players in NA. I mean, hands down. For me, Brax, his individual skill level, and it's very hard to glean from rank S, because obviously we know that's not real tournaments or whatever. But he's up there. I mean, he's like, Elige, Stewie 2K, or, automatic levels. I mean, he would slot right into a team and carry you. This is the fact. And it's heartbreaking to see that talent go to waste. And, we know he'll never compete in a major or whatever. Now, one of the other things that I want to clear up, a lot of people have asked, well, what does this mean about Valve? And people have said that, oh, ESL must have had conversations with Valve about this and kind of got Valve's permission to do it. The people who are saying this don't understand how this works. So I'm going to clear that up now because I think that's important before we move on. Valve are as hands-off as a developer is ever going to be with their product. It's one of the reasons I respect them. I've seen the dystopian nightmare created by Riot, which is now getting worse under Blizzard for the Overwatch League. It's where the developer sits as sort of all-judging, all-knowing God, deciding who can and can't play their game. They refuse to acknowledge that leagues, ladders, gameplay, all of this can be transformative. They want complete control, complete influence. They effectively say on a day-to-day basis, and it started years ago, once we started signing up to terms of service, who can and can't play their game. And it could be for ridiculous reasons. And it's spreading. We saw it in PUBG with Dr. Disrespect. You gave me PTSD for joking on Twitter about kicking me through a window. Now I'm going to ban you and I'm going to cry about it and say violence isn't okay. I don't give a fuck about your personal politics, mate. I don't give a fuck about your PTSD. You're a developer. At least try and remain fucking vaguely neutral and just punish people based on the terms of service and the rules. People don't want to do this anymore. So this is why I love Valve. Because Valve, they literally will talk to you about it, but Valve will always be Valve. And Valve will give you the room to breathe and give you the space, and they'll let you try things, and this can lead to some fucked up heinous shit. This can lead to stuff like the skins gambling epidemic that we've had, because they're saying, hey, look, here's the API, go nuts. But again, it's a net good. Bad things will come of it, but there's a net good. Now, anybody who thinks that ESL kind of went to Valve and were like, oh, please, mighty Valve, may we unban these players? It didn't work like that at all. I'll tell you that. Consultations with Valve about this issue are very, very short now, and I imagine Valve are incredibly bored about it because Valve's stance is clear. The bans are indefinite. Something is unbelievably drastic would have to change at Valve for the bans at Valve tournaments to be lifted. But Valve are clear about that. Valve say to every company they interact with, you do you. We don't want to interfere with your business. The only reason that these bans were universally enforced is because everybody wanted to go and pitch for majors, because that's how it works, right? Like, let's say I run a company, right? Richard Lewis Enterprises, good name for a company, right? And I want to do esports events. I have to send Valve a pitch and say, this is why you should give the major to me. This is what I can do. These are past events I've done. This is what they look like. This is what we've achieved. And everybody's doing that at the same time. And Valve go, yeah, we actually like the idea of you doing it. Yeah, let's go do it. Okay, Richard Lewis Enterprises gets the major. We all have a ticker tape parade. Now, what people got afraid of was that if they didn't kind of mirror Valve's bans, there might be an element where Valve would say, okay, well, we don't want to give you a major because you went against us on that thing. And this is the fear tournament organizers live in all the time, that they don't know how vengeful developers are going to be. Certainly Riot are. Riot have threatened to pull whole events from ESL, in IEM. They've threatened to pull whole events, right, just because ESL say, well, we want to use this piece of talent over here. I mean, like, I had it once where Riot basically threatened ESL. I was going to go to a StarCraft event. And Riot were like, we don't want Richard Lewis anywhere near League of Legends. They were like, hey, he's in StarCraft. No, as in we don't want him in the building. Some developers are like this. And as a result of this, tournament organizers panic. They get antsy. They don't want to have their own identity or own rulings. Even if they look at something and they go, we don't agree with that. They want to go with a developer because that's the smart play long-term for a tournament organizer. Now, in this instance, I think it's unfounded because I don't think Valve care. I don't think Valve are going to be like mad at ESL. And equally, I know that they didn't want ESL to come cap in hand and ask for permission. What ESL have done is ESL have followed instruction from something that professes to want to be a governing body for esports, and they've brought their rules in to improve their product. Now, that might mean that they're slightly out of alignment with Valve, but it doesn't affect anything. ESL could still get a major in the future. They will have to adhere to Valve's rules for that tournament, but that's what we all do. I mean, that's what every tournament organizer in the business has to do. It's the developer's game. What the developer says goes, ultimately. It's their intellectual property. So we all exist under that rule. This doesn't point to, oh, ESL are never getting a major again. ESL are trying to break away from Valve. I mean, ESL have tried to be an independent, hermetically sealed tournament anyway, regardless of majors. They were the first to put the prize money up to $250,000. You know, they were the first to raise money for major-sized tournaments that didn't come from crowdfunding. And you know, some people were like, "Ooh, Valve will be upset about that." Didn't stop Valve giving them majors in the future. You know, you got to understand the lay of the land here. There is no petty vengeance coming from Valve. I mean, anybody who says otherwise is just lying. I mean, it's just Valve are just Valve. They just care about Valve things, and they care. Honestly, I know this sounds ridiculous, you know, because I see so many people like being insulting about Valve on the forums. You know, Reddit and stuff. Valve, honestly, one of the big drivers in the decisions they make is the community. And I know that from interacting with them. And I know you'd never believe it, but take it from me, that is a factor. They do read everything. They just don't let you know they're reading it. So, yeah, I mean, take all of that into consideration as well. Like, ESL want to be a hermetically sealed thing. They want to do their own thing. And it's not like either, you know, I saw some other dumb arguments. Oh, what you're saying is match fixing now only carries a short penalty if you're popular enough, if you've got a big Twitch following, if you're a top player. Again, idiots. These people are idiots, right? These people have been made a brutal example of, right? Fact. All the people who got banned from IBP have been made a really brutal example of. And it's caused untold stress. And sure, you might think they deserve it. You know, there's an element there as well. You know, yeah, you deserved some form of punishment, but this is unprecedented in our space. So, you know, ESL have reiterated that isn't the case. ESL came out, the Flying DJ, Ulrich, enjoying a run of popularity in the ever-fleeting court of public opinion. I'm sure it won't last. Here he came out and he said, like, you know, we want to be absolutely clear. While these bans have been lifted, our stance on match fixing remains firm. Doing it at any level of esports has a ban of 5 years attached. So this is the interesting part, right? Now it's clear. We're going to lift all the bans that went before, where there were no rules, were no penalties. Because, look, I know this sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but if I said to you, all right, if you get caught doing this, you will be banned for life. Or if I said, if you get caught doing this, you'll be banned for 5 years. Or if I said, if you get caught doing this, there'll be no penalty whatsoever. You know, these things change and alter your decision-making process. I think, honestly, the iBuyPower guys, I think, and I've said this across the board, if on the day they get caught fixing, they come out and they go, yeah, lol, we just weren't trying. We were super tired. You know, and we told some friends we were tired and they went and placed some bets. We're really sorry. It's hugely inappropriate. We won't do it again. They get banned from CEVO, probably for a year or two, but no one else cares. Honestly, the fact that it dragged out for like 6 months and it was just lies upon lies upon lies, and then people felt compelled to bring Valve to the table, and that's what really kind of made it as big a deal as it was, and I honestly believe that. So, you know, now we know the rules. The rules are clear. The rules are set. 5 years, probably fair. I mean, that's about the average lifespan of an esports game. So, I mean, it's as good as a life ban, but if a new version of a game came out, there's nothing stopping you going to play that. You know, so, yeah, fair, reasonably fair. Now, just as an interesting little tidbit, don't know if you guys missed it, this is at the time of recording this, DreamHack, even though they're owned by MTG, they're not mirroring this. They're not going with ESL and ESEA's decision, right? You won't see these guys at DreamHack. DreamHack came out, and according to Jacob Wolf at ESPN, a source I respect, he said DreamHack, which also participates in the Esports Integrity Coalition, has not changed their stance on Valve banned players competing in their Counter-Strike Global Offensive tournament. The organizer told ESPN. On Monday, the Esports Integrity Coalition and ESL announced new rules and lifted the ban around the former iBuyPower players who were barred from competing in January 2015 as a result of match fixing. So this is interesting to me because I don't understand how you can be in the Esports Integrity Coalition and not listen to their rules. That's fucking crazy, right? I mean, that looks like trouble in paradise to me. Because if I was the Esports Integrity Coalition, I'm like, well, what are we even doing here? Well, what's the point? I've just told you this is what's fair, and this is what we've arbitrarily decided. But you're not going to go along with it. So I'm looking at all of that, right? And I'm thinking, yeah, there's something going on there. So I mean, I don't know if it's like they just want to be distinct from each other or something, but that seems stupid to me. You either defer to the Esports Integrity Coalition or you don't. I mean, there's no middle ground, right? Like, that's as black and white as it gets. So that's interesting. But like, just to talk a little bit about the players before we wrap up, what it means, like where we'll kind of see them, like they are going to get approaches by organizations. I know this firsthand. I mean, as soon as it happened, I had a bunch of messages. I was still recovering from a really tiring weekend, networking, drinking, meeting fans, meeting old friends. And then straight into organizing some, content for E-League and everything else. So I was like, oh, fuck, I haven't had time to respond to all of this. But straight up, there were people asking me if I could, put them in touch, like in decent-sized organizations. Turns out Mo somehow has inserted himself into this. And it's like, yeah, I'm their agent, guys. And, everyone in IBP Power is like, is he? All right, cool. But it doesn't matter. The reality is, they're in a good spot. They are going to get approaches because, look, let's be real. How many NA teams, right, NA orgs, I should say, pick up squads and they know they're never going to go to a major? I mean, they know at the entrance point, we're not going to go to a major. We're never going to go to a Valve-sanctioned tournament. Best we can hope for is, competing in ESEA. Maybe we get invited to an international LAN. Maybe we qualify for an international LAN. It's like you make business decisions. It's like Mythic, right? Like, let's, again, Summit's actually really improved as a player. He's come on leaps and bounds. And, not learning about fire notwithstanding, but, Flom, these are top streamers. You don't put them in a team because you want to go to a major. You put them in a team because hey, it's good for the org. It's going to give us a lot of attention. The name's going to be out there, and maybe we can secure some sponsors off the back of that. And honestly, that's what's happening here. Organizations are going to come out. I mean, look, Jack Etienne of C9 is as straight shooter as it gets, but he'll always go out and bat for people who he think's been given a raw deal. He did this with Incarnation, who was supposedly permanently banned from League of Legends for life on flimsy evidence. I wrote about this extensively. The evidence didn't hold up. I'm not saying he didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying he wasn't an asshole, but the evidence wasn't strong enough to convict. Jack Etienne literally put Cloud9's reputation on the line to get Incarnation back into LCS. He took a huge gamble there because that Riot could have just turned around and gone, all right, well, you made your bed. You backed the wrong horse, fucker. But he didn't. He went and fought for him, and he fought for Brax. Brax was the first player that kind of got attached to a big-name organization again after all of this. He normalized his return, and him and Jason Lake, they went out and they were like, look, this kid's got real talent, and a lifetime ban for him at his age is insane. So the other thing that people are saying is, players wouldn't want to play with these guys. Well, let's analyze that statement, and that's ridiculous because the players that are likely to play in this team are the younger guys that haven't had the opportunity, that aren't going to go to a major anyway, that are maybe playing in teams that either have talent that's past its best or just young players of similar ability. There's no one to learn from. There's no direction. There's no guidance. And you end up with this just revolving door policy, just roster swap after roster swap after roster swap. Look, one of the long-term problems in NA, one of the reasons why NA really faded as competitors is this. They didn't develop talent. You had a handful of players that basically controlled everything, that were deemed to be the good ones, the top players that all knew each other. Teams would be made up of this group. Meanwhile, all the young and upcoming talent had to ride this gauntlet of cheating accusations, being shunned, because they were younger and maybe they weren't as world-wise as everybody else, and they couldn't fit along. They didn't have the right kind of personality. They couldn't go out drinking or partying, whatever it is. They don't get invited to that table. often they get actively shunned and pushed out. And I've seen this time and time again in NA. You'll get like one kid out, like 10 or 15 potential prospects, be allowed to come and sit at the table. People will vouch for him and say he's legit. Meanwhile, if you look at all the, Breezy was a cheater, wasn't he? Stewie 2K was a cheater, wasn't he? You know, everybody was like making these wild allegations about young players they didn't know. And some players get disheartened with that. Some players get bitter and upset about that and start acting like assholes to the people making the allegations, so that limits their chances further. It creates this environment where there's not a lot of talent coming through. Now, Dazed in his wisdom as he's got older and wiser, he's out there now saying, look, I will definitely play with these young players. I got a bunch of targets that I would play with in these teams. Now, look, these kids that he's targeting probably aren't going to majors anyway. So why would you turn down the opportunity to go and learn from one of NA's best in-game leaders? You know, you got Dazed and you got Sean Gers. Why would you turn down the opportunity to go and play with Dazed, learn from Dazed, improve, and then what's the worst case scenario? Another team wants to pick you up. What, you think Dazed is going to go, oh, well, no, stay with us and don't play in the majors? Obviously, he's going to go, yeah, fuck it, go play in the majors. And then they'll pick another young player and develop that, right? And that's it. So obviously people are going to play with him. You know, like Freakazoid, he said he didn't want to. Freakazoid is an older, experienced veteran player who knows what he wants from his career, and he wants to play at the highest level. So even though I've got no doubt he'd have a good time playing with these guys, and they'd be winning games, and they'd be doing it, he wants to go to a major again. You know, he believes he can do that. People can say whether that's fair or not. Freak is a born competitor. He wants to be the best. He's never going to limit himself. But, you know, there's young players who understand that for them, they're on an upward curve. Why not play with the best in-game leader for a year, 2 years, whatever it is, and then get picked up by somebody else, and the cycle can start anew. So if you think that then they're going to be short of options, nah, you're completely wrong. They will definitely get players to play with them. Absolutely. So you know, it's good that they're agreeing to play with each other again. Certainly the core, it looks like AZK, Braxton, Daze was even saying, because we haven't even talked about the European guys, you know, Effexio, Uzi, these guys all get to come back as well, and they're in a similar position, right? You know, they're in a similar position. They can play for these smaller organizations that aren't going to go to majors, but will be competing in ESL, will be competing in the ESEA, and we all know that's like, what, like 75% of the calendar? That's 75% of esports events. The problem is I don't think other events are going to mirror this because they're not bound by ESIC, and I think everyone else will follow DreamHack's lead. So this literally is going to be you know, it's fortunate it's one of the largest tournament organizers that have agreed, because this means that, like, there's going to be enough to justify having a team that can't go to majors, having an organization pick them up, because it's still going to be eyeballs. You're still going to get eyeballs on your sponsors. You're still going to get eyeballs on your brand. Dazed, box office. Swag, box office. AZK, he did the smart thing and disappeared, I guess. Went over to Overwatch for a little bit. People want to see these guys. I mean, this is just the reality. So they're going to be fine. And according to what's been said already, again, at the time of recording this, looks like Dazed is saying they've got 5 organizations interested in them, one of which might be Tempo Storm. So look, and I know Reynad, Tempo Storm's a very solid, reputable organization. That'd be a good home for them. I mean, that would be even better than I expected them to get. So IBP Power are back. I mean, you know, the players, I should say. And it's good they're going to play with each other. It negates all that problem about spreading out the talent and creating an issue where you have one player in the team, you can't go to majors, you can't do this. You know, like I said, I think it's a good thing, and I'm happy they're all going to get a chance, even if it's going to be still a small opportunity compared to what could have been, you know. But we make decisions. And that's that. Life is life. But yeah, I'm really pleased. It does point to some interesting stuff going on behind the scenes with ESIC. I'm wondering now if ESIC are ready to take that step up and be a bigger organization and everything else. But people are really overplaying all the warring factions, Valve being angry by it, all of that gibberish. And like every fan, I'm looking forward to see how these guys do again. And I wish them well. I really do. So watch this space. IBP Power will be competing in an ESL or ESEA tournament near you guys soon. Yeah, and I'm happy that there's not a happy ending, because maybe you don't deserve an entirely happy ending, but an ending that to me makes more sense than the one we were looking at, you know. So there you go. So any updates on the iPad Power, guys? I'm going to reach out to Brax. I'd love to get him on the show to talk about his thoughts and feelings sometimes, sometime about all of this and what it means. But yeah, as I said, hopefully this is where the saga ends, and we get to see them raising a trophy, even if it's one for $10,000 rather than $1 million. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one.